And page 106 is where we will begin this evening. So I want to welcome everybody. To me, there is something really powerful about our Martyrology Yizkor service. And I think that just from a very personal place, it was the one service that my father felt was the most important to attend with Beit Haverim. And so while I might not see him throughout any of the days or services at High Holy Days, he was certain to be here. And so there's always a way where he's present now that I'm in a place of mourning for him in the service because it was so meaningful. And for him, he would reflect that he felt like it was not a perfunctory experience, that it was something that really engaged a heart opening. And for him, he could find a bridge to connect with his parents. And so I think that there's just really a powerful way that when we are open-hearted and we call to mind who we're thinking about, whether it is people in our personal circle or when we think about systems in this year, it feels incredibly important. And in part because what I think my father noticed is that there is an avoidance in talking about death and dying and grieving that has been a part of our American culture. And it has been a failure of our culture profoundly, especially in this moment. What does a culture do when 205,000 people have died from a pandemic, and that number is not abating when we avoid talking honestly and openly about death? Or when again and again we see how dispensable Black lives are? We are in a digital age that it makes it harder and harder for us to avoid the data or the scenes, but we don't have the pathways or the rituals or the opportunities to be in conversation. So as a country, we still have not deepened our ability to create the kinds of spaces where we express our communal losses. It is why I am grateful for our Jewish traditions, where if we leaned into these traditions more, the communal rituals of loss and of grief can help us acknowledge and accompany and process our experiences. I am grateful for the practice of Martyrology and Yizkor because it is a time where we can hold space prayerfully together, helping lead a movement of death professionals, of hospice and hospital workers, funeral directors, cemetery managers, chaplains to support people in this country to more openly and honestly lead people through death. Caitlin Dowdy teaches us that holding the space to talk about death is crucial. And it is exactly what we're missing. To hold the space is to create a ring of safety around families, around friends, around community of those who have died, so that we can provide a place where they grieve openly and honestly without fear of being judged. I believe that what we're creating tonight, as we listen to emotive music, to stories of our traditional martyrs, as we witness how this pandemic has affected us, to hearken to the deaths that have been caused by racial injustice, and then by moving into our own personal grief over our individual losses of our loved ones, and concluding the evening with the dedication of our memorial wall. This is what it means to hold space. And as we do this, I want to bring to mind what Washington Irving said, which is, there is sacredness in tears. They are not a mark of weakness, but rather of power. Tears speak more eloquently than 10,000 tongues. They are the messengers of overwhelming grief, of deep contrition, and of unspeakable love. And so I invite all of us to reflect on the losses that we've experienced, the historic ones, our communal ones, and our personal ones, and that all of the ambiguous losses, we don't have to just focus on death, but all of the ways that we have grieved this year. We will hear echoes of stripping away of what we thought life was once. If we let the feelings render our hearts open, if we pay attention to the ever unfolding nature of this change-filled life we live, as we listen contemplatively throughout the service, and particularly to this Zazwek quartet and will, as they offer up Philip Glass's Eucharist, let us begin to support one another by holding the space for ourselves and for one another. The Talmud recounts the chilling story of our beloved Rabbi Akiva's death, found to be disloyal to the empire because of his commitment to Judaism and because of his beliefs that were found to be provocative. He was captured and he was set to be executed. And he was brought to the executioner, and it happened to be the time when one would recite the Shema. And so even as they tortured him brutally, he focused on saying the words of the Shema, freely accepting the yoke of God's sovereignty. Even now you can accept this sense of God's responsibility, the disciples asked. And Rabbi Akiva replied to them, my entire life, I have been troubled by the verse, love the eternal your God with all your soul, which means that even if your life should be taken, I often wondered when I would be able to fulfill this mitzvah. And now I have this opportunity. Should I not do so? And he left the world while uttering the word echad, God is one. We find Ella Eskara on page 106.
Ele Eskara, Ele Eskara, ונפשי עלי אשפכה, נזכרה, ונפשי עלי אשפכה.
One of the reasons people give for the resilience of the Jewish people is because of our unwavering commitment to memory. We find Let the Mount of Memory by Yehuda Amichai on page 106. I'd like to invite Jenny Hoffner to read this for us.
Let the Mount of Memory remember in my place. That is its purpose. Let the garden in memoriam remember. Let the street named in the name of remember. Let the building that is known remember. Let the house of prayer in the name of God remember. Let the rolled up Torah scroll remember. Let the Yizkor prayer remember. Let the banners of memorial remember. Let the multicolored shrouds of history remember, draped with the fallen bodies that have turned to dust. Let the heap of dung remember in the gate. Let the remaining flesh remember. Let the beasts of the field and birds of the sky devour and remember. Let all of them remember, so that I might rest.
Amen. The tradition of reciting a martyrology became a defiant way that our tradition dealt with the persecution that Jews have felt throughout history. To uplift what was dehumanized is a powerful response, and to acknowledge the pain and the heartbroken nature of our history in the face of sometimes a majority that did not care was a defiant and necessary act. We listen to these words from Lamentations as we invite our hearts to pour out like water. Shifchi kamayim.
Shifchi kamayim, kamayim liber. Shifchi kamayim, kamayim liber. And pour out like water, pour out, pour out, pour out your heart, and remember, remember, and remember, remember.
We move into this martyrology written by Rabbi Ruth Adar that connects different points in Jewish history to this moment. We'll read parts 1, 3, and 4, and then we'll take a break for some music and continue with 5 and 6. We find this reading on page 107.
Ele Eskera, these I remember. These I call to memory late in the day, the voices of martyrs stilled by tyrants, the voices of my ancestors murdered by mobs. I remember the 10 martyrs, the 10 Torah scholars, who were murdered by the Emperor of Rome. Shimon ben Gamliel was beheaded for daring to teach Torah. Ishmael, the high priest, was flayed alive. Akiva, whose flesh was torn with iron combs. Hanina ben Tradan was burned alive with his Torah scroll. Hutzpit the interpreter begged to say the Shema one more day. Elazar ben Shammah was one of Akiva's most favorite students. Hanina ben Hakmai was killed by poison. Yeshevav the scribe urged his students to love one another before he was murdered. Judah ben Dama is known only as one of the 10 martyrs. Judah ben Bava was stabbed to death for ordaining 5 new rabbis. Ele Ezkera, these I remember.
Ele Ezkera, these I remember. I remember the Jews of Sepharad, the Jews of Spain and Portugal. The monarchs of Spain and the king of Portugal offered them a choice. Convert, go to exile or die. Many fled, some were converted by force. Many remained secretly faithful to the Torah. Too many of them suffered at the hands of the Inquisition, burnt to death in the Auto de Fe. Thus were the great congregation of Sepharad destroyed in Sevilla, in Cordoba, in Cadiz, in Barcelona, in Granada, in Malaga, and in Toledo. The civilizations that produced great poetry and science, philosophy and medicine scattered to the 4 corners of the earth, driven underground and burnt to death in the city's centers. Their neighbors denounced them and crowds cheers for their blood. No voice rose to speak for them. None came to their aid. Elah Ezra, these I remember.
I remember the Jews of Eastern Europe and Russia and dwellers in the shtetl, those who died in pogroms at the hands of Cossacks. I remember the destruction of families and homes. I remember their precarious lives, their pitiful deaths, and I say, Ella Eskara, these I remember. History took a more murderous turn. Anti-Semitism, racism, and the bigotries were the scourge of humanity. No choices. Not only did we suffer, but other races and nations have felt their brutal virulence. And still the world stood too silent, did too little. Africans were brought and sold while the world watched. Native Americans were hunted and murdered while the world watched. Armenians were the target of genocide while the world watched. Jews were the prime target of the Nazis, slated for obliteration. What can I say in the face of the Shoah? There are no words, no meanings, nothing to make sense of it. And all of this, while the world watched. Even today, there are those who deny that it even happened. But Ella Eskara, these I remember.
Listening to something familiar in a new way can both be jarring and powerful. And it invites us to pay attention differently. And so tonight we listen to Eli Eli, a poem that was written by Chana Senesh that has been turned into a beloved song of yearning, of resistance, and of remembrance. Tonight we hear this played on marimba by Eve Gordon, accompanied by some of our strings, including Benjamin Borthwick. As we listen to this interesting approach to a beloved song, let us be aware that the power of memory is to invite our next generation to share in the memory and then to offer it back to us powerfully so that we hear it in a different way. There is learning and discovery, and it flows both ways when we are truly an open community. And tonight, especially as we reflect on our historical memory and our future destiny, it must flow both ways. That is what it means to embrace L'Dor Vador, one generation to the next.
Ele Eskera, these I remember. I cannot forget the rare kind face, the furtive hand extended in help. I cannot forget those who risk their lives to save one single Jew. I cannot forget the righteous Gentiles who spoke up for us and went to the camps with us. Ele Eskera, these two I will remember.
Ela Ezkara, these I remember, these I cannot forget. Never again, while a silent world watches, I may not stand by while my neighbor bleeds. I may not stand by while my neighbor is shot in the street. I may not stand by while my sister is deported. I may not stand by while my sibling is starving. I may not stand by while anyone is made homeless. I may not stand by while there is injustice. Never again, Ela Eskara v'nafshi alai eshbecha. These I remember, and I pour out my soul within me.
There is folklore and truth with whomever wrote, wherever these words were found, whatever their origin, whether in a prison in Cologne, Germany, on a wall in Auschwitz, or in someone's imagination, knowing that someone needed to find and hold their faith in desperate, hard times is not lost when we can feel how hard it is to reach for what we can believe in. These words bring hope, I believe.
just find that piece incredibly powerful and part of the thinking that allows us to have some defiant hope in the world. Really understanding where we can ground ourselves in a sense of faith. Another song that's had some potency and power in our community was inspired by Ella Baker, who said in 1964, "Until the killing of Black men, Black mothers' sons becomes as important as the killing of white women's sons, to the rest of the country, we who believe in freedom will not rest." In our community, we have sung "We Who Believe in Freedom" by Sweet Honey in the Rock for many years. And forgive us, God, if we have enjoyed the melody or the power of the music more than the call to action in those words themselves. Forgive us. But we are in a moment as a people who believe in memory, that memory in the face of persecution, that we too, if we have this belief that memory has power, that we must lift up and call out the Black lives that have died, and we must say they matter. And we do that as well by recognizing that Black Jews exist in our communities and are at risk by being marginalized within the Jewish community and the Black community, and that they experience much of the same harm that our country intends through its unleashed white supremacy and our criminal injustice system. And by recognizing that slavery and its impact have still not been addressed, that repair must be done, and that as Jewish Americans, we are affected by the problem. And at the same time, those of us with white skin are also a part of the problem. And so we bring into our martyrology tonight a recognition of honoring those who have died because of racial injustice. And we say their names because their lives matter. I invite us to listen as Heidi and Anthony Watley read this Unatana Tokef for Black Lives that was written by Imani Romney Rosa Chapman.
Each day we hazard our Black lives in the court of the white world. We know our worth, yet the white world is judge self-appointed. We pass before you to be counted. 12.5 million bodies stolen, 1.8 million mercilessly avoided your shores. Stolen shores, stolen land, 10.7 million arrived unsafely, times 401 years, times infinite human indignities, times 3/5 of a human being. We now number 47.8 million. In the morning, it is written, and by curfew, it is sealed.
Who shall die while jogging?
Ahmaud Arbery.
Who shall die while relaxing in the comfort of their own home?
Botham John Atiana Jefferson.
Who shall die while seeking help after a car crash?
Jonathan Farrell, Renisha McBride.
Who shall die while holding a cell phone?
Stephon Clark.
Who shall die while decorating for a party?
Claude Reese.
Who shall die while enjoying music?
Jordan Davis.
Who shall die while selling music, trying to make a way out of no way?
Alton Sterling.
Who shall die while leaving a party?
Jordan Edwards, Sean Bell.
Who shall die while sleeping?
Ayana Jones.
Who shall die while worshiping the Lord?
Charleston 9.
Who shall die for a traffic violation?
Sandra Bland.
Who shall die while coming from the store?
Mike Brown and Trayvon Martin.
Who shall die while playing cops and robbers?
Tamir Rice.
Who shall die while lawfully carrying a weapon?
Alejandro Castile and Freddie Gray.
Who shall die on the shoulder of the road with car problems?
Corey Jones and Terrence Crutcher.
Who shall die in the first hours of the new year?
Oscar Grant.
Who shall die while shopping at Walmart?
John Crawford.
Who shall die while cashing a check in peace?
Yvonne Smallwood.
Who shall die while reading a book in their own car?
Keith Scott.
Who shall die taking a walk with their stepfather?
Clifford Glover.
Who shall die reaching for their wallet?
Amadou Diallo.
Who shall die while running away?
Walter Scott.
Who shall die while asking a cop a question?
Randy Evans.
Who shall die while begging for their life, their breath?
Eric Gunner. George Floyd.
Who shall die by the effects of supremacy, greed, apathy? Who by beast indeed? But the repentance, prayer, and charity temper judgment, serve decree. But repentance, prayer, and charity avert judgment's severe decree. By turning, connection, and giving, these return us to our God. Whose repentance, whose prayer, whose charity?
Temper, please temper. Temper, already temper. For sins against God, the Day of Atonement brings forgiveness. For sins against one's fellow man, the Day of Atonement brings no forgiveness till he has become reconciled with the fellow man he wronged.
Mishnah Yoma 8:9.
A Day of Atonement brings no forgiveness till he has become reconciled with the fellow man he's wronged. When will you atone? How will you atone? For you, like us, will be judged. You, like us, will return to dust.
In our community, we have something we call the Kaddish chant. It is a part of the mourner's Kaddish. We're going to chant it together now. It brings a sense and a spirit of the cycle of repetition that we walk through when we are mourning and saying mourner's Kaddish. We walk through the cycles of time and hoping that our grieving will soon be abated and come to some sense of peace. That is hard to do after listening to what we just listened to, but may we find some comfort in this. Please chant with me. Yitbarak ve'yishtabak ve'yitpar ve'itromam ve'yitnaseh ve'yitadar ve'yitaleh ve'italal shmei 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 dekudesha yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpar ve'itromam ve'yitnaseh ve'yitadar ve'italeh ve'italal shmei 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 dekudesha yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yipar ve'itromam ve'yitnaseh ve'yitadar ve'italeh ve'italal shmei 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 dekudesha brechu.
Continue to find healing. I know that today we learned that our country alone has lost over 205,000 people to the corona pandemic. But we also know that it has crossed borders, countries, and cultures. There has not been a community that's been spared. And so we join with people around the globe together in grieving the lives lost to this coronavirus pandemic. And we share the pain and the anxiety and loss that we have been experiencing in these turbulent times. We've experienced the changes of funerals, some ceremonies delayed, the suffering of family members and those who died with COVID, who were separated from one another at moments where traditionally we would have been at the bedside, wrapping someone in love, and instead there has been isolation. We listen to this choral arrangement by Will Robertson of On the Day That We Are Together Again, that was written and performed by Siri Undland of Humbird. And I invite us to pay attention to all the things that we have lost by what might return when we reemerge, and particularly these words from this song. And the ones we love who are gone, and the ones that we love who are gone, we remember the stories, we sing the songs for the ones we love who are gone.
On the day we are together again, on the day we are together again, I will pull you in close like a hoop with no end. On the day we are together again, we will share the same table again. We will share the same table again. I will pass you the salt, the candlelight will bend when we eat at the same table again.
We will walk round the block hand in hand. We will walk round the block hand in hand. We will stop for a snack at the taco truck stand. We will walk round the block hand in hand.
Someday we will go back to work. Someday we will go back to work. May we be among people who respect our worth. Someday we will go back to work.
I will help the strangers I meet. I will help the strangers I meet. It is possible to get back on our feet. I will help the strangers I meet. I will write you a letter. I will write you a letter. I will write you a letter for now. Hope is a message that survives somehow. I will write you a letter for to the healers who keep us alive. To the healers who keep us alive. Oh, I toast to your courage, to your knowledge and light. To the healers who keep us alive.
God of healing, put an end to this pandemic and all illness and disease. Bless those who stand in service to humanity. Bless those who grieve. Bless the dead, so that their souls are bound up in the bond of life eternal. And grant those who are afflicted with disease or trauma a completed and lasting healing, one by one, until suffering ceases, and we can stop counting the dead in heaven and on earth. Amen. That was a selection from Alden Solovey's One by One, which you can find the entire poem in your Machzor. Tonight we'll be saying Mourner's Kaddish twice. This opportunity is for us to recognize all of the collective losses. And so we won't be asking for names in this moment, but I wanted to prepare you that our final Kaddish, we will ask for everyone to put the names in the chat. But if you want to put collective losses that you are thinking of, please do so now in the chat. And for those who want to rise, you can find Mourner's Kaddish on page 117 in your supplement. You can rise in spirit, or you can rise embodied. Please join with me in saying this prayer. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Amen. V'alma divra v'chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam omei almaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekutsha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama Rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru, Amen. You may be seated. We take a moment to listen to one of our congregants, Joni Twersky, who reflects back to us a very powerful moment in the life of our community, the need and the necessity for us to gather after the tree of life. And so I invite to hear her words and how that moment impacted her.
I think we're all united through a deep sense of social justice and a sense of really wanting to be Jewish. You know, I grew up in a traditional community. My husband grew up in a traditional community. You know, we were unaffiliated for, probably a decade because we just couldn't find a space where we felt comfortable. And I think I had to really search to find the right community for me. I think a lot of people go through that. And there would probably be a lot of floaters like us if it weren't for CBH, a lot of people that really wanted to come together as a community, but just couldn't find a home that accepted them as they were. You know, when I'm out in the community with Rabbi Josh or other CBH people and we're at a vigil or at an iftar dinner and we're with people that are not Jewish and seeing us show up, like those are the moments where I'm proudest to be Jewish. It's not, when I came to shul because, it's a high holiday and I got to be in shul on high holidays. So the CBH cultivates those opportunities really well for people to connect with the pieces of their Jewish identity that actually inspire and motivate them rather than just kind of guilt them into submission. When the Tree of Life synagogue attack happened in Pittsburgh in October, I was pregnant and I was very, very affected by that because I had just found out that I was gonna have a son. It just got you thinking about all these Jewish milestones he was gonna have. And what my comfort level was going to be with having them publicly, with the state of the world being what it was. I had him, and it became really important to me to have the birth in a synagogue and to, not be afraid. And I need to take a breath. That's the kind of support that you see from the people here. It's strong leadership, it's creativity, it's community, but it is also deeply personal at times, and I'm very grateful for that. Rabbi Josh moved his schedule around. You don't get a lot of notice with verses, but Rabbi Josh rearranged quite a bit so that I could have it here in a synagogue, because I felt like that was really important. Hopefully, if we stay in the area long term, he's gonna grow up with CBH as his synagogue, and hopefully get bar mitzvahed at CBH one day. It's gonna be a really great place for him to grow up, because he's going to see how many different ways there are to connect with Judaism. He's gonna see a lot of different ways that Jews look, that Jews can be white, Jews can be black, Jews can be gay, Jews can be straight, Jews can be artists, Jews can be business people. Jews don't all have to look like one thing. And I think that's a great kind of Judaism for my son to grow up with. Thank you for hearing why CBH has been so important to me and my family. If you would like to see this community continue to thrive, please join me in giving as well.
So incredibly powerful and authentic, Joni. Thank you so much. And, in thinking about the ways that we've been leaning into and cultivating a sense of defiant hope, I think that the choices that you elaborate, both when we show up for others and when we decide, even in the midst of tragic circumstances, to come to synagogue and be together, that is how we can act in ways that bring that sense of hope more deeply. So thank you. Before we move into Yizkor and offer some of our personal private prayers as we remember those we love, we have some announcements this evening that will help you understand more of what is ahead throughout the High Holy Days and Yom Kippur. I'd like to invite our newest board member, Tom Downs, to offer some announcements this evening. Thank you, Tom, for joining us.
Thank you. Very emotional, moving service. Chag Sameach to everyone, and welcome to all our guests from Atlanta, from everywhere across the country. And I understand that we've been having some people even internationally join us. Over the next couple of days, we will continue to have a variety of High Holy Day offerings. Tomorrow, Sunday, at 5 p.m., we'll have a Yom Kippur service for younger children aged 5 to 9. At 8 p.m., we'll have our Kol Nidre service. On Monday, our services will start at 9:30 a.m. with the morning service. At 11:30, our Yom Kippur service for older children ages 10 to 12. 12:30, we'll have a Torah service. 1:45, a Torah study. 2 p.m., we'll have children's programming, Yom Kippur time capsules. At 3:30, we'll have a contemplative chant and meditation avoda service. At 6 p.m., we could stand before the open ark on Zoom. At 6:30, an abbreviated Yizkor prayers in Nila. At 7:45, we'll have Havdalah and break fast blessings. After the High Holy Days, we do not disappear. We do not vanish. We continue to have lots of services and offerings for you. Among these, we have mindful moments, which meet each weekday at 8:45 a.m. in the morning. Then at 7:45 in the evening, you could join us for our 10-minute minions. They normally meet each day from Saturday through Thursday. However, this weekend and Monday, they will not meet, but they'll pick up again on Tuesday. The board continues to meet minimum of twice a month, including this Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. We have lots of offerings coming up in October, so keep up with that. Excuse me. While you're at our website, which by the way is congregation.haverim.org, and I think you know that because you found your way here tonight, you could see at the top of the page, we have a COVID-19 tab, and on that, there's all kinds of resources for you to deal with the pandemic. And while you're on the website, you can make your donation for the High Holy Days. It's fast, it's easy, it's secure, takes you 2 minutes. And if you can, you could also just make other donations to help, because we have some members of our community who have had to step back because of COVID-19 affecting them financially. So if you could give a little extra, that certainly would be appreciated. Again, our website is Congregation Bet Haverim. The links for all these are on the website, including links to our YouTube channel. And if you don't want to go to the website all the time, sign up for our Bet Mail, and you will get our weekly newsletter in your email directly. You don't have to do anything, just click it open. Thank you for giving me a few minutes of your evening tonight, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Tom. As we think about Yizkor, I want to invite us to embrace the reality that, as Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says, we will always grieve, that grieving is something that is a part of life and that it's forever. We will not get over the loss of a loved one. However, we will learn to live with it. We will heal and we will rebuild ourselves around the losses that we have suffered. We will be whole again, but life will be changed. We start our Yizkor with Esa Enai, this prayer that invites us to search for the questions that we hold, to recognize when we need to reach out for help, and that the face of the divine is often in the face of those who comfort one another. And so we reach out when we are in need, and when we think someone might be in need, we extend as well. We listen to Esa Enai, sung by Gayanne and Brad.
Esa enai el harim me'ayin ya'avo ezri Esa enai el harim me'ayin ya'avo ezri Me'im Adonai Oseh Shamayim va'aretz Ezri Me'im Adonai Oseh Shamayim va'aretz.
For those of us who have Yizkor books with us, I invite us to find them. We can also find the poem on the Yizkor book, Untethered, on page 115 in our Machzors. I'd invite Jennifer Weissman to offer this reading. Good Yantif.
Untethered by Rabbi Joshua Lesser. The sound that escaped me when I learned of the loss was that of a lighthouse's foghorn, warning me of the sharp rocks, but it was too late. Death and the aftershock of grief were unavoidable. When the tumult of the storm dissipated and I could take stock of the damage, I saw that one of the thick braided ropes that bound me safely to the shore had become untethered. The other ropes had started to fray. I found myself at the mercy of morning's tide. Your memory and the wind whipped me about, free and unsparing, and within the gentle lapping waves, rocking me side to side. How do I understand balance in these seemingly new waters? Out beyond, I see so many others untethered. It's hard to know if they too have been surrounded by grief's ocean, or if their memory is no longer a fetter to a safe harbor, but a sail or a north star leading to discovery beyond sorrow's horizon to a place where life and loss are ahead.
Amen. A litany of remembrance by Rabbi Sylvan Kamens and Rabbi Jack Reamer. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick of heart, we remember them. When we have joys that we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. I'm going to invite us to bring on those who will be reading our names this evening from our Yizkor book. George, when you're ready, you can begin.
Beloved members of our community, Robert Alpern, Tom Beavers, Barry Berman, Serge Bernstein, Joan Bettman, Vida Leo Brown, Sherry Emery, Suzette Cohen, Jonathan Friedman, Evelyn Gershon, Herbert Gershon, Lucy Grantham, Ruth Grossman, Danny Hecht, Alexander Hoteling, Michael Kinsler, Sherry Cantor, Lanny Lesser, Tom Levine, Geraldine Levitan, Donna Lewis, Arthur Levy, Robert Needle, Gary Piccola, Art Prager, Dave Schwartz, Adam Shapiro, Jerry Shore, Margie Shore, Leslie Wasmund, Roger Weinstein, Jane Welborn, Michael Wolfs. Those beloved family and friends by members of our congregation: Melvin Abend, Barbara Chain, Howard Chain, Ann Favis, remembered by the Abend family; Henry Adler, Marie Rose Adler, Pranab Datta, remembered by Lauren Adler, Deblina Datta, Aaliyah Adler, and Asha Adler; Stanley Adler, Judith Adler, Craig Adler, remembered by Marjorie Adler, Michael Fournier, and Sam Fournier, Fred Adler, Stephanie Adler Braunstein, Aaron Braunstein, and Chloe and Hunter.
Robert Alpern, Ramon Andujar, Oscar Arturo Barrios, Marshall Badal, Rebecca Fleischman, Fred Fleischman, our ancestors from the Asherman, Badal, Fleischman, Guten Tag, Lacey, and Mishorer families. Leonard Birch, Dorothy and Leonard Roth, Jack and Sandra Horowitz, Irvin Israel, Lee Furman, Gary Weitzkenkorn, Sissy Toronto, Herb Mendel, Sharon Lichtenthal, Fran Berkowitz, Serge Bernstein, Vita Leo Brown, Anna Lucia Castellejo, Alvaro Castellejo, William Frank, Alicia Caicedo Romero, Jorge Castellejo, Marion Bloom, David Bloom, Esther Schrag, Alfred Schrag, Dan Wexler, Dotsie Cohen, Harry Cohen, Lucy Shapiro, David Shapiro, Carl Shapiro, Hannah Goloveski, Abe Goloveski, Mildred Hausman, Andy Pockman, Elsa Bruck, Harvey Siegler, Bob-Elise Siegler, Howard Harris, Hilda Nathan, Francine Cetron, Kanwal G. Yod, Guarang Yod, Ruth Kennedy Evans, Forrest Lee Chansey, Ray Evans, Joe Kennedy Jr., Mary Jane Shackelford, Roger Weinstein, Susan Weinstein, David Mitchell, Mark DeWolf, Helen, Alan Chasin, Martha Charles Chasin, Rachel Cohen Davis, Leland Bernard Cohen, Miriam Kaufman Friedman, Adalbert David Friedman, John Cohen, Golda Brenner Cohen, Josephine Cohen, Phyllis Stone, Leon Stone, David Cohen, Rose Kolbs, Nathan Kolbs, Marvin Kolbs, Aaron Reckelman, Betcha Reckelman, Harry Getlin, Mildred Getlin, Eric Reckelman, Ben DeLugan, Rita Lefkowitz.
Kelso Peterson, Seidel Diamond, Gertie Peterson, Jeanette Hoffman, Francis Brown, Herbert Diamond, Irwin Diamond, Irving Ziffer, Art DeFrancis, Ben Drew, Marion Drew, Phyllis Landris, Merrill Egdahl, Julia Podhoser, Izzy Egdahl, Morris Podhoser, Joni Podhoser, Morton Billy Bloom, Don Bernstein, Darlene Kasperzik Solomon, Norman Braverman, Rose Braverman, Melanie Irwin,
Charles Prestwood, Warren Ogletree, Carrie Elizabeth Ogletree, Scott Braverman. Paul Fayer, Ruth Fayer, Rose Fayer, Rose Kepix, Fayer Vilmash, Eugene Kepix, Susie Landman. Irene Field, David Field, Mixa Meklowitz. Irving Finn, Natalie Harrison, Al Corfin, Sarah Jaffe, Louis Jaffe, Stella Gilman, Charlie Gilman, Marty Harrison, Harriet Fisher. Golda Jean Schmidt, Moses Friedman, Anna Friedman, Sela Epstein Friedman, Herman Schmidt. Sylvia H. Friedman, Oscar L. Friedman. Barbara Heller, Ira Streitfeld, Alan Thornell. Barbara Engler. I. Jerry Leopold, Max Fuchsman, Felicia Fuchsman, Yetta Wennick, members of the Fuchsman and Lekowitz family that perished in the Holocaust. Solomon Leibowitz, Sylvia Leibowitz, Neil Leibowitz, Stephen Garnett. Barry L. Berman, Arthur W. Schlesinger, Nancy Schiller Schlesinger, James Schlesinger. Herbert Gershon, Evelyn Gershon, Sam Sims, Herman Sims, Selma Long, Barbara Long, Gussie Sims, Isaac Sims, Jeanette Gershon, Sam Gershon. Gilbert Morgan Geurin, Dorothy Smith Geurin, Gary Michael Geurin. Karen Geiger, Dan Butt, Sarai Butt, Michael Pestalozzi. Edwin S. Wise, Julia G. Wise, Edwin S. Wise Jr., Estelle Glasser, Ruben Glasser. Felix Glickstein, Natalie Glickstein Haas. Abraham and Edith Goodman, Pearl Tedoff. Rose Gold, Julius Gold, Milton Gold, Dr. Arthur Helfet. Philip Allen Goldberg, Alberta Goldberg, Alan Goodman, Joyce Goodman, Bob Goldman.
Flora Burrell Goldsmith, Richard Goldsmith Sr., Gail Goldsmith Rose, Zachary Burrell Rose, Lucy Grantham, Howard Gross, Ben Gross, Anita Mild Golson, Michael Kinsler, Rose Mild, Samuel A. Mild, Marilyn Berman, Howard Gross, Ben Gross, Rose Smook, Zoltan Smook. Remember the Holocaust, never again. Sylvia Sprintz, Henry Sprintz, Shirley Heckermian, Charles Sprintz, Sandy Sprintz. Floran Hilsenrad Kerr, Harold Hilsenrad, Hugh David Hilsenrad. Beatrice Heimowitz, Leo Heimowitz, Michael Heimowitz, Danielle Heimowitz, Mitchell Greenbaum, Alexander Houteling, Dr. Otto D. Payton, Beverly Jordan, Lowell Sigmund, Helene Jung, Albert Jung, Margot Jung, Bert Jung, Dolph Proskauer, Frederick and Ruby Cantor, Leonard and Sallyanne Ackerman, Erica Goldberg, Leslie J. Levy, Orrin J. Levy, Esther Mendelson, Renee Cagle, Richard Cagle, Amy Levy, Carla Kay, John Kay, Renee Magnus, Regina Magnus, Leon Magnus, Herbert R. Karp, Zelda and Samuel Berman, Sadie and Lewis Karp, Belle and Jake Rosenfeld, Jerry Berman, Elliot Kornhauser, Marvin Kornhauser, Stuart Kornhauser, Nikki Kornhauser, Robert J. Pallas, Norman Kotler, Dorothy Kaufman, Jacob Marcus, Fanny Marcus, Monroe Krasilovsky, Gertrude Marcus Krasilovsky, Joan Bettman, Doris Kreisman, Daniel Kreisman, Deborah Gail Crisell Cannon, Mario Kuppermink, Raquel Braverman, Lillian Kupferberg, Emmanuel Kupferberg, Joseph Mitchell, Rebecca Mitchell, Louis Friedland, Lena Friedland Katz, Samuel Baer, Della Baer, Lloyd Kupferberg, Mayor Mitchell, June Slavin and Rita and Lee Langer, Guy Natelli and Ralph and Marguerite DeAngelis, Max Lacrick, Eta Lacrick, Sherwood Stern, Gertrude Stern, Sanford Leach, Lillian Katzowich, Louis Katzowich, Elizabeth Leary, Frida Malochnik, Barbara Saffon, David Saffon, Bill Wagstaff.
Arthur Levy, Adele Halpern Levy, Harold V. Levin, MD, Joyce Jacobson, Jay Cohen, Gerda Smith, Louis Levy, Sam and Anna Levy, Ella and Jacob Rapin, Molly and Larry Kathas, Pauline Kunix, Max Rabin, Sam Rabin, Hyman Rabin, Lanny Lesser, Eli Lesser, Rose Lesser, Audrey Erdman, Dave Wasserman, Faye Wasserman, Barbara Wasserman, Neil Wasserman, Alan Wasserman, Stephen Resnick, Lanny Lesser, Eli Lesser, Rose Lesser, Audrey Erdman, Stephen Weinreb, Eleanor Levine, John Lewis, George Floyd, COVID-19 victims. H. Kirk Lewis, Leo R. Burson, Josephine Weinman Burson, Elise Goodman Lewis, Lena May Rubenstein, Guy Cotton Rubenstein, Julius Sonny Burson, Peggy Burson, Sam Baum, Oscar Burson, Amelia Burson, Frida Kaminsky, Morris Kaminsky, George and Esther Schendelman, Celia Burson, Solly Burson, Sam E. Burson, and Celia Ray Burson. Donna Lewis, Jack Schwartz, Eleanor Schwartz, Jim Lewis, Jerry Feintuck, Irvin Jacobs, Idel Margolis. Moselle and Jack Marks, Nathan Marks, Ida and Sol Marks, Mary and Max Green, Susan Marks Blindelman, Larry Wingard, Cindy Witkowski, Jake and Saki Marks Anderson, John Lewis, Peter Steiner, Duncan Ellery, Susan Kimmelman, Lorraine Mazer, William Mazer, Shirley Siegel, Walter Siegel, Arthur Macer, Jonathan Macer, Eleanor Spieler, Sally Baines, Sally Baines. John Julian McWilliam, Dave Schwartz, Hannah Burson, Florence Weissman, Sam Weissman, Pauline Menz, Melvin Moshe Menz, Avon Myers, Bernard Miller, Alice Miller, Rebecca Goldberg, Jill Lazarus, Madeline Milsman, Holly Amsterdam, Marilyn Berman, Doris Regensberger, Sherman, Stuart K. Sherman, Sylvia Ginsburg Blum, Harry Nathaniel Blum, Phyllis H. Minkin, Leon Minkin, Marshall A. Minkin, Rona L. Minkin, Adele Orijudos, Mildred Morrow, Louis Morrow, Pauline Morrow, Mary and Isidore Engert, Bathsheba and Morris Morrow, Cheryl Bogrove, Eleanor and Sid Silverman, Doris and Alvin Markowitz, Fanny Whites, Elizabeth Lipskin, Dora Laskin, Ray Perdomo, Irene Brown, Ruth Green, Barry Brown, Bruce Moran, Jolly, Charles Schnittman, Dorothy Schnittman, Lillian and Abraham Muscat, Gregory Muscat, Reba and Gracie Muscat, Murphy Cobden, Catherine Diane Powell, Judy Horrell, Harold Needle, Ruth Needle, Robert Needle, Craig Allen Davis, Kimberly Nellis, Rita Picker, Benjamin Picker, Ethel Stone, Leo Stone, George H. Norton, Edward P. Norton, Gertrude W. Norton.
Unmute me. Ben Iskoff, Riva Iskoff, Michael Offenham, Joseph Oliver, Emma May Oliver, Lillian Osiason Neusner, Fred Neusner, Saul Osheroff, Eleanor Schlissel Osheroff, Elliot Morton Osiason, beloved aunts, uncles, and cousins, Dr. Stephen Schwartz, Esther Mickelberg, Mary K. Powell, Elka Gerbin, Sherry Cantor, Jason Brodsky, Irvin Cantor, Beverly Cantor, Luz Quintana, Rodriga Quintana, Paula Rosen, Menachem Rosen, Oscar Ravina, Edward Philippe Levesque, Anne Chamberlain Levesque, Baruch Rabinowitz, Rivka Rabinowitz, Mark Rechtman, Jane Rechtman, Baba Mika, Misha, Binya Weissman, Gottel Weissman, Irving Rich, Lynn Rich, Celia Slomovitz, Harry Slomovitz, Morris Rich, Minnie Rich, Hi Slomovitz, Marion Gerson, Bernie Gerson, Loretta Robbins, Joshua Robinson, Estelle Robinson, Arnold Schleifer, Meyer H. Rose, Nettie Weiss Roseman, Annie Weiss, David Weiss, Sadie Weiss Geiger, Minnie Roseman, Rabbi Michael A. Singer, Eliza Danielle Singer, Philip Roseman, David Rosenzweig, Ethel Rosenzweig, Gilbert Lee, Lorraine Lee, Joseph Rockelson, Marion Sobelson, Bert Sobelson, Henry Sobelson, Fanny Sobelson, Nathan Rosenzweig, Julia Rosenzweig, Jacqueline Quado Russler, William Russler, Alan Rosenberg, Abe Gaze, Lillian Owen, Christopher and Doreen Goodwin Drew, Sam and Rebecca Lyons, Deborah Weingarten, Beverly James, Stephen Block, Linda Berman, Bruce Greenspan, Beverly Greenspan, Sadie and Sid Greenspan, Ruth and David Kiner, Rose Sokoloff, Sam Sokoloff, Molly Schechter, Polly Sokoloff, Rachel Golperin, Edith Dubin, Louis Dubin, Jean Galvin, Murray Galperin, Rosalie Berman, Adolph Galperin, Mildred Ansell, Howard Gross, Benjamin Gross, Milton Ratner, Marion Ratner, Gail Conroy, Angela Sugar, Nathan Sugar, Frida Salnick, Richard Klaus, Meyer Tolochko, Catherine Folkoff, Shelley Travers, Eleanor Argentar, Joanne Idelson Alterman, May Weinstein.
Carol Jacobs, Fred Pate, Georgia Moore, Ben Weiss, Estelle Weiskopf, Vladimir Velville-Wilchanovsky, Peter Weiner, Mary Elizabeth Witherspoon, Jack Witherspoon, David Witherspoon, Marion Rosenberg, Philomena Barnhart, Melvin Barnhart, Hugo Wolf, Hattie Orell, Buster and Trax Wolf, Cheryl Krugler, Jean Sherry Faust, Bernard Ben Faust, Bertha Lambert Zaslow, Alexander Zaslow, Fresca Andujar, Sally Velcarvacel Nemirovsky, Joseph Frankie Vargas, Laura Jacobs, Murray Jacobs, Betsy Eisbisser, Eugene and Dorothy King, Leah Esther Robinson Carpin, Jack Arkell, Pearl Arkell, Stephen Zier, Jeff Jacobson, Elliot Harris, Ray and Harry Weinbaum, Wallace Weinbaum, John and Margaret Bathrick, B. Holmes, Sally Wild, Raven Wooldancer, Tom Beaver, Mary Kuttner, Harold Alt.
Friends, we take a moment to turn into either the Machzor that we've provided you, which you will find Yizkor prayers on page 116 and 117 that we each will say privately. Some will stand at this moment if you choose. You can also, if you have a Machzor that is hardbound, you can find even more Yizkor prayers on page 1011 to 1027. And so we take a moment as we say each one of these prayers to ourselves, and then we will join together in chanting when we are finished. So take your time, say the prayer over each beloved, and then we will come back together.
Shalom. 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 Shalom.
El Malay Rachamim is a plea that the soul of the departed be granted Menucha Nechona, proper rest. Through our prayers and our good deeds, we hope to earn God's compassion for the souls of our loved ones. El Malay Rachamim includes the phrase, on the wings of the divine presence, rather than the more common under the wings of the divine presence. Under the wings implies heavenly protection from danger by using the bird analogy, spreading its protective wings over its young. It's reversed when speaking of spiritual elevation. The universal presence is compared to a soaring eagle that puts its young on top of its wings and carries them aloft. I remember one time seeing a mama bird teaching its fledglings how to fly by tipping a wing. The baby bird would fall off and then flap its wings as hard as it could to get back on its mama's back. This happened a couple of times until the path of the mama and the baby diverged, each going their own direction. I don't know if they ever saw each other again, but I remember being filled with both sadness and with hope when I saw that. Please join me for El Malay Rachamim. It's on, I believe, the bottom of 117 in your supplement. El Malay Rachamim, Shochen B'Maromim, Hamtzeh Menucha Nechona, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע, מזהירים לנשמות יקירנו וקדושנו שהלכו לעולמם. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירם בצל כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבם, ונאמר אמן.
Friends, we're going to say Mourner's Kaddish, and then we're going to introduce the memorial wall. I'm going to invite all of us to put the names into the chat, those that we are remembering. And we'll take a moment. Again, if you want to rise in an embodied way or in spirit, I invite you to do so. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, b'alma divrach hirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye decho Beit Yisrael, b'galav v'zman kari v'yimru amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Leolam Umei Almaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei Dekudsha B'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya b'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'maromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. You may be seated. One of the powerful things about buying our own building, in my mind, was the possibility of having a home where our beloved's names, those who have died, could be on the wall. And in our community, we knew that we wanted to bring that spirit in a unique way. And so I'm very grateful to the congregants who helped shepherd this experience. Though it took a bit longer than we expected, I just want to express my gratitude for Gina Gershon, for Paul Glickstein, and for Miriam Karp, who really guided us through this process, navigated with both the architect and the contractor, and helped bring about a vision that I believe is beautiful that we will show you this evening. And so I wanted to invite one of the members of the committee who worked to envision it and bring her artistic skill and eye to the fore. And so I'm grateful to Miriam Karp and want to invite her to offer some words.
Okay, thank you very much. Among those who I wanted to thank, Rabbi Josh mentioned the committee, but I also wanted to thank the work that the Rabbi did on this committee. We first started, I think, in June of 2016. It's been a long time coming. I also wanted to thank Pamela Gottfried, Rabbi Pam, for working with Julie Lockrick to make sure all the Hebrew names were spelled correctly. It was a long process, and we couldn't have done any of this without all the people that worked on it together. So I wanted to say initially that at a time when we have lived through the closing of countries, the shutting down of cities, and the contracted dimensions of our own lives, grief has reopened and expanded its borders. So it's so fitting that we dedicate our memorial wall at this Yizkor service for Yom Kippur. We knew what we didn't want for Memorial Wall when we started the design process. We didn't want the traditional brass plaques with lights. We didn't want the brass tree with the leaves of the people who had died. We wanted a wall that we could move in case we ended up with another building. And we had a model. We looked at a lot of different models of different examples of memorial walls. And we really liked what Or Hadash had done. It's shelves with acrylic blocks with names printed on them. And when you are celebrating a yortzeit or a death, you put a stone on the block. But we didn't want to do exactly what they had done. So we had an overall plan in our ritual committee when we were doing ritual objects to have them be of the elements of fire, water, air, and earth. So we have wooden shelves, they're of the earth. There's a steel wall behind our memorial that combines all the elements. It's unfinished steel with subtle markings that almost run like tears behind the blocks, and they'll change very subtly and slowly over the years. And I think that really reflects our relationship with death because that too changes over time. And each year when we mark a yortzeit, you're a different person remembering different aspects of your loved one who's no longer here. And you come to them with a different heart and a different mind. And I think it says that death, although death might be final, it's never static. And I really feel that our wall reflects that. We have 242 blocks on our wall, including 25 for our founding members. And most of the ones that aren't for our founding members are amber, orange, and red. They're the colors of fire, of flame, that symbolizes the light which the memory of our loved ones bring to us. And we weren't looking for primary colors. We wanted instead something that was deeper, burnished by memory, that would have their own inner light. And we chose purple for the founding members, not only because of the contrast to the flame colors, but because of its symbolism. It's the rarest of colors in nature, and historically was the most difficult to produce in fabrics, which is why it was reserved for royalty, for kings and queens. It's also long been associated with the gay community. On the electromagnetic spectrum, purple is closest to ultraviolet and X-rays, the invisible rays. So in many traditions, it's thought of as the bridge between the earthly and the spiritual. One of the other things we did differently than the Or Hadash memorial was that we did not put the colors in a pattern, a recognizable pattern. So instead, and they had 3 different blues. So they had a dark, a medium, and a light, dark, medium, light, all the way across and up and down. So ours are arranged more randomly and with no discernible pattern. And there are several considerations that went into this, one of which was that at Or Hadash, people kept moving the blocks. So they were no longer 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and everybody had to keep putting the blocks back in the same order. So we might imagine that that could happen at Or Hadash. I mean, it's CBH. It's very possible that somebody might move a block occasionally, especially children. But I love that because when you come for a yort site, the block of your parent or your loved one might not be in the same place, and you have to search for it. And so while doing that, you're going to see the names of other people who have died, and you're going to think of the connections that you have with them, and your parents, your spouse, your partner, whatever, your child, they're going to have new neighbors through this process. And I think that it starts a conversation. It makes us more of a community because we're all together. And as I said earlier, our relationship to the person who died changes over time. And I think it's appropriate that the block might migrate around. So I think that there are really beautiful symbols in our memorial wall, and I'm quite proud of it. And I hope that at one point we all get to come back as a community and see it and be in front of it and see the light that it casts for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miriam. Such a beautiful description and invitation for us to connect. As is this music, this beloved prayer of consolation and comfort that our chorus director, Will Robertson, composed and that our chorus beautifully sings. It's fitting that we bring the marriage of our artistic visions around comfort and consolation together. As we listen to these words, we let our hearts be open and our eyes to receive and bless our new memorial wall.
Oh
From generation to generation, we keep aflame the candle of memory. Let this wall be a bridge from us to those who have died, so that when we see their names, we strive to live true to ourselves and to the legacies that they have left for us. As we honor their memories, as they reside in our sanctuary, may their lives and their deeds of kindness lift our prayers. Blessed are you, source of life, who commands us to remember. And let us say, Amen. And in seeing the emptiness of our sanctuary, there is this kind of beauty of knowing that their names are filling up the space. And so that when we are ready to enter again, that we will be warmly embraced by their legacy and their memory. I want to invite everyone to have a good night. May all of us be comforted amongst the mourners of Jerusalem and Zion. May we find a sense of heart opening as we move into our Yom Kippur season. As we find Kol Nidre tomorrow night, we gather again for that solemn occasion and this opportunity for us to crack our hearts open even wider. I thank all of you for holding this space, for being able to walk and honestly confront the ways that we grieve and mourn, that we can witness the pain in the world, and that we know that with one another, we can find a sense of making meaning where often it is hard to find meaning. Shavua Tov, good evening. Take good care.